Hi, welcome to episode 7 of Le Chemin du Roi. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltare, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. In this series, we are exploring the highways and byways of Quebec. As a genealogist, I know that the location is critical to understanding and finding your ancestors. And that's kind of why I began this series, because as I've been researching in Quebec history, I've been doing a lot more digging. I was like, where are these places? How do they exist? And where do they exist? And all of the above. And I said, I need to take a trip. So once I said that, then I was like, how do I get there? And then Le Chemin du Roi came up and I began exploring it, and I wanted to share it with you. In many respects, this video series is my own travel itinerary or checklist. If any of you out there have any ideas or suggestions for my upcoming trip, because this is a virtual trip for now, but it will be an actual one soon enough. And please let me know in the comments below anywhere that you think I should visit along the way. And with that being said, let me just make sure you know that I do have a Have Roots Will Travel website. I do have Facebook and Twitter. And of course, this channel, and you can write to me at lisa@haverootswilltravel or post a comment just below. So with that, let's get started, shall we? So the idea for Le Chemin du Roi came to me as I was exploring a concurrent series, and it is actually I'm working on still, called Les Filles du Roi. And a lot of these ladies settled and were pioneers of the areas that we are talking about along the Chemin du Roi. And this is what got me really, really excited about exploring this avenue. So with that being said, let's get started. So those of you who have been with me since episode 1 know this segment, but let's review. Let's first talk about the road itself as it exists today. It's part of the Quebec highway system and is now known as Route 138. Now, Route 138 is a very, very long road that starts off from a very remote town called Louiseville. You can see the arrow pointing to it on the left hand of your screen, and winds its way throughout Quebec, ending at a very small town called Elgin, which is directly at the New York Quebec border. It's a whopping 880 miles or 1,420 kilometers. It passes through 5 regions of Quebec. There are 17 in all, so there's a big chunk of Quebec it passes through. It starts off, depending on your point of view, at the Montérégie, Lanaudière, Mauricie, Capitale-Nationale, and Côte-Nord regions. Those are the 5 regions that it passes through. Part of this highway is known as Le Chemin du Roi, or the King's Highway, which is one of the oldest highways in Canada. This is the portion we'll be traveling along as we explore the history of Quebec together. Now, in this green map on the right side, you'll see that there's an arrow pointing upwards, which is Quebec City, and an arrow pointing left, which says Repentigny. That's the area of Le Chemin du Roi, okay, that we'll be traveling. How did it all start? Well, in 1706, the Conseil Supérieur, the Grand Council of New France, decreed that a road should be built to connect the houses along the north shore of the St. Lawrence River between Quebec City and Montreal. Work began in 1731 under the supervision of Grand Voyer, which is a senior road surveyor, Eustache Lanouillet de Boisclair, and was completed in 1737. Upon completion, the Chemin du Roi was 7.4 meters long and 7.4 meters wide, and 24 feet wide, over 280 kilometers long, or 170 miles long. And it crossed, get this, 37 seigneuries. Those of you with Quebec roots know about the seigneuries, or will know. And what, in other words, if you have any Quebec roots at all, the odds are one of your ancestors lived in one of those 37 seigneuries. So we will explore that together. The Chemin du Roi was the longest road in existence at the time north of Mexico. Now, in 1910, the portion of the Chemin du Roi on Montreal Island was renamed by the Montreal government, and as it became Gouin Boulevard. So it's no longer considered part of the Chemin du Roi historic route, and does not feature any of the route markers or anything like that. So you wouldn't know that you're on that historic route. However, when I'm going to take the trip, trust me, I'm starting off here or ending there, as the case may be. And so it's kind of like Route 66, where there's no markers, but you know that it once was that. And the Chemin du Roi was really the first roadway built between Quebec City and Montreal that could accommodate wheeled vehicles. And by that, I don't mean cars, I mean carriages. And it is truly a remarkable achievement on so many levels. But when you think about the impact of that road and the connections that they made to each other, just phenomenal. And I really think that it was part of the development of the strength of Quebec at the very beginning. And even when the conquest came a mere 22 years later, it still withstood, and the culture and the connections. So I really think that you cannot underestimate the importance of the road. In fact, this brings to mind, a friend of mine had told me that Charles de Gaulle, when he came and gave his very famous speech, which says, Vive le Québec libre, they had him actually drive through the Chemin du Roi to further impact and impress upon him what Quebec really represents. And to me, the Chemin du Roi is probably as close to the essence of Quebec as you're going to find. So starting off your journey in Quebec, if you want to do some historical research, you can't really go wrong by exploring the Chemin du Roi. So I've entitled this slide, Are We There Yet? Now I want to make sure to impress upon you that the entire trajectory of this Chemin du Roi, according to Google, is 2 hours and 22 minutes, or 2 hours and 20 minutes. So if I give the impression that it's this long journey, it is because I'm taking 11 episodes to do it, and possibly 11 days in reality. I'm not sure how long I'm going to take when I actually do it. But just suffice it to know, if you just want to take a road trip and just travel along it, just to see it, it is only 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now, along the way, you're going to see those Chemin du Roi and the Vieux Chemin, all kinds of signposts that you'll want to take your picture at. I know I will. And so those are there to kind of tell you that you're still on there. There are parts, couple of parts where the Chemin du Roi, the Route 138, ends, and it becomes the Autoroute 40, so you get kind of on the Autoroute, and we'll explore that as we go along. And then you get back on Route 138. Just couldn't keep going, if you will. So the first town we're going to look at today is a town called Yamachiche. Now that's a hard one to say. It has less than 3,000 people currently. Then this name was first used as the name for the Petite Rivière Yamachiche, which means the little river Yamachiche. The native population, possibly Cree, meant much and mud, and the Yamachiche River stream is probably muddy, so it seems likely that this would be the origin of this particular name. So let's have a look at how Yamachiche came to be. So Yamachiche, how it evolved. Now in 1653, a fief, which is a small segment of a seigneurie, was granted to the governor of Trois-Rivières at the time, Pierre Boucher de Grosbois. Okay, we've seen him before in episode 6, arriving in Trois-Rivières. In 1672, it actually became a formal seigneurie, Grosbois, which actually, just so you know, means large wood. Now, between 1673 and 1702, no development in this area is due to the Iroquois threat. It was just too great for them to actually even think about settling here. Now, by 1703, there are 3 brothers, Genina, who show up and put down roots. They are essentially the founders of the town. And in 1706, 7 families finally come in. Now, 1737, the Chemin du Roi's building connected it with other towns, notably Louiseville and Pointe-du-Lac. So this became definitely, Yamachiche became definitely much more important because it was connected. And And then in between 1765 and 1790s, refugees from Acadia and from the United States, loyalists, came and settled here. So there was a little bit of an English tone to this, which I didn't know about until I researched it. Now, I do have to say I do have a personal connection because three of those Janina brothers happen to all be my great-grandfathers by, just the chain of descendancy. Etienne, Jean-Baptiste, and Pierre Janina. And through their descendants, I am, I guess, a daughter of the founders of Yamachiche. I gotta go. Who knows? You never know what you're going to uncover in all of this. And to say that I want to walk on this land is an understatement. So by 1711, the first chapel was built. Now remember, it was 1703, I think, when the Janina brothers came. So shortly thereafter, they finally got some sort of chapel, and it was dedicated to Saint Anne by the Récollet, which is like a priest, Simeon Dupont. This church was dedicated in 1832, and a statue of Saint Anne was placed on the top. By 1863, a typhus epidemic threatened to ravage the community for a second time. Apparently, the parishioners prayed, and they were healed. So, in essence, Saint Anne, this statue became like a pilgrimage that people did. In 1876, there was about 6 other people healed from coming to see the statue. So the miracle of St. Anne's statue grew in the reputation, and by 1957, fire consumed the church, and the statue fell but did not break. So now this statue of St. Anne de Yamachiche is actually in the cemetery, so people can go without any fear. They can protect it, that sort of thing. Really remarkable what it has withstood. Then you have the Cimetière Sainte-Anne as it exists today, and the Ancien Cimetière de Yamachiche. So obviously a place this old would have gone through a couple of cemeteries. But both of those are important for you in case you're doing research here, which I will be doing. Definitely want to explore those 2 cemeteries in your genealogical work. Well, with that family connection, I'm going to have to stay here a little bit longer, so I'm going to get hungry. I might even have to sleep over. So they have a place called, again, I've never been, La Porte de la Mauricie, which is a beautiful name, which means the door to the Mauricie region. It is a restaurant and I believe a hotel that has been there for 35 years. And I guess that it would be a great place to stay. I can't wait to hear any kind of comments that you might have. I really would like to have feedback. I didn't get any information on the menu, kind of a description. It kind of said more down home kind of food and cooking, which is fine with me. And then, of course, I'll need some adult beverages. And Brasserie de Parallèle is a microbrewery. It looks promising as well. Can't wait to try that one out. I will definitely be going and getting my pictures taken at all of these places. Now, Louisville is a town of just under 8,000 people. It follows the St. Lawrence River, of course, on Route 138, but it's found near the mouth of the Rivière du Loup on the northern part of Lac Saint-Pierre. So you can see that it really is a kind of really water focused. Now, this is one of the most fascinating towns I saw in terms of naming it, the name of the town. So I called it How to Name a Town in 200 Years. So in 1665, Jean Talon forms the seigneurie of Rivière-du-Loup. It was called Rivière-du-Loup. In 1672, the seigneurie is given to Charles Duguay-Rozon de Madurelle. Between 1672 and 1722, the seigneurie was called Manurel. Now, and I tell you all these facts, for those of you who are doing research here, you may come across documents that have that name. Now you know. It is the same as the present-day Louisville. In 1722, it was renamed to Saint-Antoine de la Rivière Saint-Jean. After 1722, Rivière-du-Loup was adopted as a name. By 1845, the parish municipality was formed. 2 years later, it was dissolved. And another 8 years later, 1855, Saint-Antoine de la Rivière-du-Loup was the name selected. Okay, we've got a name. 1878, the municipality is formed, Village de Rivière-du-Loup. By 1879, gotta change it yet again. It becomes Louiseville. How and why was it named that? Very strange name, you think. Well, it was renamed Louisville in honor of Princess Louise, who was the fourth daughter of Queen Victoria, and she was the vice-regal consort of Canada, which is the wife of the Governor General. One of the reasons they had to choose a name is that she was supposed to come for a visit later that year. And at the same time, there was another Rivière-du-Loup in the St. Lawrence region of Quebec, which exists to this day, and I've been, and it is called Rivière-du-Loup. And so the confusion was, paramount. What are we going to call our place? So renaming this town that couldn't seem to own any name seemed the easiest thing to do. And what the heck, let's name her Louiseville. Not sure if the princess ever visited Louisville. However, in the fall of 1879, her husband and her arrived in Halifax and traveled to Ottawa by train, visiting Montreal and Quebec City. Knowing the location of the newly named Louisville, I'm certain that the train would have gone by there at least. And on January 1st, 1989, get this, the parish and the village municipalities merged again and became the town of Louisville. I mean, it just boggles the mind, but that's the history. And Princess Louise, Alberta, actually was here in Canada for 5 years and spoke perfect French. So that would have endeared her to that. If you notice her middle name, Alberta, yes, Alberta was named for this princess as well. So note to self, got to study her. This church that we are looking at here is the fourth church for this parish. There was one built in 1705, 1805, 1921, and again in 1926. The first settlers built a chapel in 1705 on the site of what is now Lacroix Street. So if you're traveling there, you can have a look at least at the site. 100 years later, in 1805, another church would be built. And then that lasted for a very long time. And then finally in 1921, they dedicated a new church to St. Antoine. 5 years later, that church burnt down and they rebuilt yet again. This time it stuck, and they built a church that is truly magnificent, with marble from Italy, from France, and Morocco. It has 67 windows and some amazing frescoes. Gotta check this out. And then, of course, the Cimetière Saint-Odilon dates from, I believe, 1921. And there would be ancient or old cemeteries that you would need to go and look at if your ancestors settled here earlier. Well, of course, I'm going to get hungry again. And so we have a local restaurant called Chez Jean-Baptiste, which has been in business for a long time, it appears. It has 32 years, according to the website, and has been providing some country charm and home cooking, so it says its website. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And here's a tip, because I plan on coming with my RV. There is ample parking. So rest assured, I'm going here. This is like number one on the list when I come to Louisville. And of course, I'll have to, somehow jump out of the truck and get some Tim Hortons donuts and coffee for the road. And if I've already not had pizza at Stretto's Pizzeria in Three Rivers or Trois Rivières, I will definitely be partaking as well here in Louisville. And so ends another episode, episode 7. We are going to episode 8 next time. We are going to be seeing, I think, 3 more towns on the next segment. And can't wait to visit. Until then, au revoir.